Dr. Michelle Aebersold, a clinical professor at the University of Michigan School of Nursing, a clinical associate professor in the School of Information, and one of our XR faculty innovators and residents. She's a certified healthcare simulation educator and a fellow in the American Academy of Nursing and a fellow in the Society of Simulation for Healthcare. Dr. Aebersold has extensive experience in using a variety of simulation learning methods, including XR, to improve the care of patients through caregiver education and training. She is currently working on a grant-funded project using immersive virtual reality for training in cardiac arrest leaders and teams, practice readiness, and multidisciplinary collaboration to improve healthcare. Dr. Aebersold has numerous publications present on a variety of topics and is often an invited speaker at international, regional, and local conferences. She consults with nursing schools around improving their simulation programs, developing virtual educational assets, and other projects. Joining Michelle is Dr. Deb Lee, a clinical assistant professor, co-director of the Clinical Learning Center at the U of M School of Nursing, and a certified healthcare simulation educator. With an extensive background in simulation-based learning, Dr. Lee's research examines efficacy, retention, and transferability of procedural skills using augmented reality devices. She has developed nursing and medical procedures, including central line insertion, thoracentesis, paracentesis, lumbar puncture, and arterial line placement using Microsoft 365 Dynamics Guides and HoloLens 2. Dr. Lee has developed collaborative agreements with industry partners and healthcare systems to train medical and nursing students globally on bedside skills and procedures. Dr. Lee has maintained her clinical practice for the last 12 years as a nurse practitioner for the critical care services at a large academic center. She works regularly with residents and nurse practitioner students to train them on procedures. In addition, she teaches a procedural course at the School of Nursing, which trains all graduate nursing students for clinical practice. Through coursework and hands-on clinical and research experiences, Dr. Lee has developed extensive knowledge in the area of simulation-based learning. She has obtained valuable communication, leadership, and time management skills as a director and as an advanced practice nurse, which is essential for improving outcomes, and moonlights as a critical care emergency room nurse. Dr. Rishi Reddy is a professor in thoracic surgery at the University of Michigan. He is the director of the Center for Surgical Innovation, the chair of U of M's Comprehensive Robotic Surgery Program, and the endowed Jose Alvarez Professor of Thoracic Oncology Research. He is involved in translational lung and esophageal cancer research, medical education research, and health disparities research. He participates in leadership positions in a number of national and regional societies in cardiothoracic surgery and surgical education. He is committed and engaged to mentoring students and trainees interested in careers in surgery and to delivering optimal health care to people from all backgrounds. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to kick us off. So, those really lengthy bios are awesome because it means that less time I have to talk, right? But the other thing is I just have to say, because AI is all the rage, so I took my presentation bio that I sent to him yesterday and I put it in Chat GPT. Oh my gosh, it sounds so much better. Isn't that sad? Okay. Anyways, all right, so yes, we're going to basically share kind of 3 different programs and projects that we're working on, just kind of give you a little bit of a flavor of what's happening, all things Michigan. But before we start, since this is sort of healthcare, we were just sort of curious, who in the audience works in healthcare? Oh, wow, okay, great, yes. Who uses any type of XR in healthcare? All right, and who wants to use XR in healthcare? Cool, all right, great. Good, all right, so we got our healthcare contingent, okay. So I'm going to start us off. I'm going to talk about a project that we just started last fall. And I will say it's been an interesting journey and we've learned a lot. So it's called the Big Ten Practice Ready Initiative. And so these are the collaborators that I'm working with. And you'll notice, and I just have to say this, we don't have anybody from Ohio State. We had a really lengthy conversation about who we should include. No, actually, Ohio State is part of this whole ANF project. They're just doing something different. So basically, the American Nurses Association has a sort of a foundation, the American Nurses Foundation, and they put out a call for grants about a year ago. And so we were very fortunate to get a grant from them. And this grant is really around sort of reimagining nursing. As we know, nurses, docs, paramedics, a lot of our healthcare professionals have really been on the front line and been challenged in the last few years. And part of that has sort of exposed some of the challenges in how we train and how we get our graduates to be ready for practice. So this grant call came out, and we decided that we were really going to use this whole new XR technology to figure out how we could help our nursing students, and these are undergraduates that we're focusing in on, how we can help them sort of go from school and into their first jobs in a way that puts them more prepared for the patients that they're going to care for. So we have this Practice Ready Nursing Grant that we were able to obtain. So what is Practice Ready? This is an interesting question, because when we went to our first grant meeting, I think I know what Practice Ready is, right? It means like I'm a nurse, I can walk out there and, I might need a little orientation, but if I went to work in the emergency department, give me a little bit of orientation and I could probably go and, take care of patients. But when you ask people, nurses, people who hire nurses, what is Practice Ready? What does that mean? Everybody had different definitions. So we found we don't have a common definition of what Practice Ready means. Does Practice Ready mean you can walk out of school and walk into your first job and not need any orientation? Or I can go be an ER nurse with 6 weeks of orientation, or do I need 6 months? So we have a lot of stuff all over the board. And not really a good common definition. So that was the first thing we sort of had to grapple with. We had to say, well, what do we think is important? So things like critical thinking and decision making and all of that. But one of the things that we believe is critically important is that our new graduate nurses, when they step out into the units, are able to critically think, make decisions, and manage caring for multiple patients or complex patients with multiple priorities. So that's sort of how we defined Practice Ready, is to really sort of move them closer to being able to care for patients in that regard. So this particular innovation is very sort of nurse-driven. Our team is comprised of nurses who really have an expertise both in training and educating our graduate nurses, as well as XR and using simulation. That's really kind of what we're all about. So what we have decided to do is, I'm going to step back here for a minute so I can kind of see this, is to really think about, as we educate our students in clinical, many students only get to take care of 1 or 2 patients. The reality is, when they graduate and they're out on a general care unit, they are going to care for probably 5, maybe 6 patients, particularly if they're on the night shift. Well, that's a big difference. If you've only managed 2 and now you have to learn how to manage 6, how do we get there? How do we get them to that place? Well, our thought was, it's hard to do multi-patient simulation in a sim lab because, usually we focus on one mannequin, we practice certain things. There's just not a good way to do that. But in XR, we can create anything, right? We can create scenarios that have multiple patients that our nursing students can take care of. So we decided to create what we're calling these virtual scenarios, virtual simulations, and we will scale up. So we will start with 1 patient and go all the way to 5 patients. And so they'll go into the VR environment and they'll take care of their patient, and then they'll come back a couple weeks later and they'll go into the VR environment and they'll take care of that same patient and then another patient. And then this will sort of keep going. And we're going to do this in tandem with their work on the clinical units. So we're enrolling students into this when they're in their senior capstone courses, so the course where they're really sort of going out there and kind of learning as close as they can to what is it like to be a nurse. And so to do this, we originally thought, well, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can, hire somebody to develop this for us. And then we looked at the complexity and we said, nope, we need an industry partner. We need somebody to partner with us, someone who knows how to design in the VR space, and in particular, someone who knows how to design in the healthcare VR space. So we looked around at different options, and we ended up going with Oxford Medical. In part because they sort of had the background, they were willing to work with us, and we felt like it met our needs with where we were going with this whole idea around decision making and sort of focusing on managing multiple patients, making decisions, managing priorities, and really less on technical skills. Like we didn't want to teach them how to put an IV in. They've already learned all that stuff. We wanted to teach them how to take care of 5 patients who have multiple competing demanding needs, who have families, who, you've got things going on in one room and you have to decide, do I go there, do I stay here? So that's sort of the goal of this whole project. So we are just finished, in fact, Jeremy's team just pushed out the last build for our 5 patient scenario, so we'll be testing that. One of the challenges we found, and many of you have probably found this if you're doing research in this space, is getting people to volunteer, right? We were super excited. Oh, all the students will want to do this. We can only do it. We only have 25 headsets. We can only enroll 25 students. Guess how many students decided to participate? Just a wild guess. 2? Oh, 5? Yep, nope, 4. 5 started and 1 gave up. Now, granted, we kind of fumbled around. We were only like 1 step ahead of the students. We had scenario 1 out there, and then it's like, okay, we got to push scenario 2 out there. Nope, that didn't work because the students took the headsets home, and you couldn't get them to turn the headset on and leave it on and dump that next, to pull down that next scenario. So all sorts of technical challenges, all sorts of problems that we ran into, but that's okay. We have smart people, we have a smart team, and so we kind of regrouped and figured it out. So guess what we're doing next year as we go into our grant year 2? They all have to do it. We're embedding it into the curriculum. So then the students can opt into the study, that we're going to have every nursing student do this. So just think 60, 70 nursing students are going to trot down in groups to the sim lab, and Deb's going to help us, and Jeremy's students are going to help us, and we're going to put them in headsets, and we will have a much more controlled way of marching this out and aligning it. So it was a great idea, and we were really excited about giving students headsets to take home. But we learned that, we're just not quite there yet, and we'll have a little bit more control doing it this way. And then we'll have a little bit higher quality for our debriefing, because we'll be able to just do it, pull our analytics, debrief them, and then they'll do some more clinicals and go back. So our hope and our goal with this project is after next year, I can come and give an update and tell you, yes, it actually helped them improve their ability to care for patients. And we're going to actually measure that as they go out into their first jobs and try to get sort of a real time, how well did they integrate into that. So that's the Big 10 Practice Ready initiative that we're engaging on. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Lee. We had to practice a handoff here, right? You hand off the microphone. There you go. It's on. You're good.
Relay. Okay. Relay. Oh, and there's Michelle's contact, if anybody would like that.
Forgot to take that slide out.
Okay, so you heard in my bio, I work as a nurse practitioner in the ICU and run the SIM Center here at the School of Nursing. I love procedures. I'm intrigued with procedures. I think that XR has a really good space to train students to do procedures, but we really are trying to answer the question for under what population and under what conditions also. So we are trying to get to the bottom of that. I have 2 projects that are currently ongoing. I'm going to show you what we're working on. One is a systematic review that is going to publication this month, and that was actually, I have no disclosures, actually was a systematic review done with 3 surgeons, and then I was the one nurse on the team doing the review. And we really wanted to know, was there evidence to show that use of XR technologies compared to traditional training methods had benefit or not? And so we divided it into 3 different groups. We looked at randomized control trials, we looked at comparative case controls, and then also systematic reviews that had previously been put out. So we had 17 randomized controlled trials. There were a total of about 600 participants, 270 control, and then about 270 that actually did XR. And looked at a focus of, a lot of it was surgical in their XR development, and looked at a variety of garden, kind of grown, homegrown XR testing. And a majority demonstrated that higher technical scores were actually in the XR, and then it demonstrated equivalent knowledge scores across both groups. So then when we looked at comparative studies, we only had 6, only had 213 participants, so the numbers are quite low in this, but focused again on surgery, urology, and then we had a study that was from dentistry, and from a variety of homegrown AR startups. And AR actually showed to improve accuracy of technical performance, but but knowledge level was basically the same. So we're finding that in 2 different areas. Went on to the systematic reviews, we had 7, but here at least we had 3,000. We're starting to get to a number that we felt comfortable with doing some findings. And so results here were XR improved surgical skills and actual performance, had variable effects on procedures. Sometimes it took longer to do it in XR, sometimes it was less time, and then no significant difference on knowledge. So really, we felt pretty comfortable. Now we need to know really, who does this work for and under what conditions. So our systematic results, our surgical and procedural XR may improve technical skills for healthcare trainees. So then come to the pandemic, running a sim center, everybody stays home. We had tons of help and nothing to do. So we decided we would start looking at how could we do our own homegrown procedural training. And fortunately, we got to Jeremy. And Jeremy was kind enough to fund us with a grant for $10,000 to say, let's try it and let's see if we can do this in nursing students. And so the other piece that Jeremy brought to us was the Microsoft 365 guides. So I don't have to know how to code. I don't have to develop it. It's basically a PowerPoint program that I can create step by step for the students. And so it was originally designed for automotive training, working on the assembly line, and it really transitions nicely into healthcare. And so we started the development of 365 guides. And this is what it looks like for our students. So they have a setup. They get in front of a task trainer. They have their equipment in front of them. They put the HoloLens on and they scan the QR code, which then puts all of their assets or instruments in front of them. And it walks them through step by step. And we have an AR lab that they can come down to and train in pretty much any time. They have to give us a heads up on what they want to come work on, so that we can have it set up, but they're welcome to come down as much as they want. And this is an example. So this is somebody looking through the headset that is actually doing a lumbar puncture.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see it. Try the clicker.
Oh, okay. See if the clicker will work.
Okay, go back.
See if we can. This gives you an idea. I can put videos in there, I can put pictures in there, and I also give them step-by-step instructions. Okay, that's okay. Step-by-step instructions. And I can actually point to exactly what I want them to pick up. I can show them on the task trainer exactly where they need to anesthetize or be inserting the needle. So it worked very well for us. And because we had all of this time during the pandemic, we created all of these different procedures to be used. So arthrocentesis, we did central line, we did some dental blocks because the nurse practitioner students were learning that, paracentesis, IV, NG tube insertion. So this is what we started kind of playing with and trying to validate. And we're continuing to try to develop tracheostomy care, wound care, suturing, and actually, I don't know if Hera is still here. Hera, Kim Berman from the dental school is actually taking this to the next level now for the dental components. So we're excited to have, and then Dr. Reddy's going to talk about ECMO, part of the ECMO development. But what we found when we actually tested it in nursing students was that our usability score was 76. So we had to have 65 or above was feasible. We could continue testing. The students on a 1 to 5 acceptability score rated it as 4.55. So they really did think it was an acceptable way to learn. And the engagement score on a scale of 1 to 10 was 8.29. So they really felt more engaged than they were using traditional teaching, which was typically come into the lab, do a procedure, watch somebody do it, then they try it, and then they may get, a half an hour to do free training on their own. So additionally, the other study outcomes we came out with was that we were able to train a little bit quicker with using guides and the AR, although it was not statistically significant, but 113 minutes compared to 120 minutes, and this was for central line training. And in addition, our faculty time was reduced by 75%. So they were self-guided, could come down when they wanted. It was adaptable and flexible for the students. And then we did have 100% competency pass rate. And it was interesting when you ask, so I teach procedures in the summer. I had 40 students. I said, you're welcome to sign up for AR methods. You're welcome to do traditional, whatever you guys want to do. It's split now 2 years in a row, almost 50-50. So we interviewed the students last year that did do the AR and signed up for that. I'm really curious this year on who didn't sign up and why did you not sign up, so that we know which populations want this and which groups don't want this at all. So here are kind of our benefits. It's really hands-on. They get the motor memory. And it's standardized. It's adaptable and flexible to when they're ready to learn. Reduces their time to training. It definitely saves on faculty time, which we really like, so we can do the higher order things that we probably should be doing. And then increases accuracy compared to traditional training. So we're finding that this is beneficial, although there's not been a single multi-site trial done yet. And so that's really where this needs to go, is we need now multi-site trials to show, and larger numbers. And our next steps are to continue collaboration we're collaborating with Michigan Medicine and Dr. Reddy, and also trying to collaborate with University of Portsmouth, which we're working on. So we'll start testing there in the fall with their group, and hopefully starting to show competency. Can we test competency? So. All right, and that's my connector, and I'm going to hand this off to Dr. Reddy.
Thank you. Just to highlight Dr. Lee's work, I think the 75% reduction in faculty time is really, I think, one of the key aspects of that, which for those of us who've been in administrative roles in education is one of the biggest challenges in healthcare, is finding faculty to teach, to do the grading, to do the assessment, all of that. And so being able to reduce that time but still achieve competency, I think, is critical. So again, Rishi Reddy, today I'm going to talk about the Center for Medical Innovations and Extended Reality, the Mixer Grant. Again, I'm a thoracic surgeon here at the University of Michigan. I'm born and raised in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is not too far away. I have no relevant disclosures for this talk. For me, background-wise, I was the clerkship director for surgery, so within the med school, I was a person in charge of all the med students when they rotated through surgery as one of their core rotations. So every med student has to rotate through OB-GYN, internal medicine, pediatrics, surgery. And so every 3 months, we'd get 45 to 50 medical students, and I'd be ultimately the person in charge of their rotations, their grading, et cetera. I was also in charge of our surgery clerkship directors committee at a national level, and then a fairly busy surgeon. And then I coordinate our Center for Surgical Innovation with Candace Stegging, who's here, and that's part of how I got involved in the Mixer Grant. So when COVID hit, and obviously COVID really, I think, became a problem in March of 2020, but in April of 2020, I had med students who were still on the rotations, and they were actually being kicked off of the rotations. They were being sent home. So I don't know if everybody remembers now, this is actually probably the most traumatic 3 weeks of my life, because, not because of COVID per se, but because we had med students who were rotating on rotations, they were going to the operating room, but if you remember back then, there was so much uncertainty about how transmissible COVID was. You know, instead of having a whole team of residents and med students and nurses go in to see patients, we were limiting it to one person at a time. So we were really limiting and going to a skeleton crew. So in my job as the educator, or the, in charge of this, the students were really getting short-shrifted in this whole time period. And it was freaking me out because I didn't know what to do, because we were gonna have a bunch of students who were being sent home every day and not have that clinical experience. And then what happened at a national level, at least within the United States, is all the medical students got removed and got pulled off the clinical rotations for about at least 2 to 3 months. Some medical schools had their students off for 6 months, which I really still can't understand, how you achieve or how you make up for that time out of a 4-year program. So that really was bad. And so at that time, one of the things that we were tasked with and I was working on was, how do we develop a virtual curriculum? So, how can we treat or teach students about surgery when they're not going to the operating room and they're not physically seeing patients? Clearly, I don't think you can create an equivalent experience on that, but at the same time, at least how can you get some of that cognitive teaching in and at least some of that exposure? So that's what we were working on. And so one of the things also that on a clinical side is telehealth visits, which we had already started doing, were less than 2% of our visits, but really shot up in that first couple of months to 70 to 80% of our visits. Again, if again for a surgery clinic, a lot of our stuff is more hands-on. That was actually pretty incredible. So the goals really at that time, I think we talked about that, is how can we train students in a virtual fashion? How can we care for patients in a similar fashion? And then really, for me personally, how can we use extended reality potentially to address disparities in healthcare? And that ties into with some of the other research that I've been doing. Oops. Maybe the battery's dead. Okay, so that brings us, thank you, to our next slide. So about a year ago, I took over as the director for our Center for Surgical Innovation within our Department of Surgery, working with Candace. And Mark Cohen, who's a previous director, had been working with the FDA, and along with the University of Maryland, we joined or started this National Science Foundation Industry University Collaboration Research Center, so IUCRC. And so there are a little over 400, I think, funded through the National Science Foundation. And the goal here, as I've outlined, is to bring early collaborators between industry and academia to fund research. And really, I think part of it is also develop a workforce within the academic schools and to spur innovation. And so ours is a little bit unique because of our aspect of being in healthcare. We're also partnered with the FDA. So there are 400 plus of these, IUCRCs. Some of them are in chemistry, some of them are in mechanical engineering. Most of them have nothing to do with healthcare or medicine. Ours, though, happens to be in healthcare and focused on mixed reality. So how can we engage and learn and build mixed reality as a viable product or tool in healthcare? Oops, next slide, sorry.
No, I'm gonna stay.
So this is just this is our logo. It's a cool logo. I think it's cool. So I want to go to the next slide. So this is our value proposition again. So global democratization of XR and improving health. I think a lot of this is more for our industry partners to try and sell our industry partners that we know what we're doing. But so I think the one in black there, training and recruitment of the next generation diverse XR workforce. So part of our goal here is to partner with different groups here at the University of Michigan, also at the University of Maryland, who is our partners, and really to be able to take students, whether undergrad students, graduate students, who are working in this field, and then to create a workforce for our industry partners. If you want to go to the next slide. I think I think it's 2 slides down as our industry partners. That's all right. You can go back one, sorry. So in terms of our research roadmap, what is our goal again? So basically what we're trying to do is figure out, again, research projects that engage our industry partners that are relevant to what we're trying to achieve in healthcare. And so the most obvious things right now that we're working on are things like simulation education, things that Dr. Lee is working on. Other things though are around the field of patient education. Could we work on doing patient education in a virtual reality setting? Is that something that you could provide if someone, here in the state of Michigan, I take care of a number of patients who live in the Upper Peninsula. That's an 8-hour drive. Is that something that patients could come or not have to physically come down here for and still get access to either healthcare, meeting? Is that going to be better than just doing a virtual meeting or a Zoom meeting or something like that? So those are some of the topics that we're trying to engage on. I think the human factors and usability is something that I'll be honest, like I didn't quite understand until we've been through this process. Things like cyber sickness. I don't know how many people here have used like VR, and has anyone had experience with cyber sickness? So a few people have, yeah. So if you use it for a lot, and I only got one of these about 6 months ago, a Quest system, and then if you use it enough, yes, I thought I was going to vomit. So, but this is a problem, right? So if we're going to use this every day in healthcare, how do we limit that? And so those are some of the projects that we're trying to tackle right now within our IUCRC. Next slide, please. So our current partners, you have Dr. Varshney, Dr. Murthy, they're both at the University of Maryland. College Park, University of Maryland, Baltimore are considered two separate entities. Myself, along with Prashant Mahajan, are our co-PI here at the University of Michigan, and then Mark Cohen, who's now at the University of Illinois, may be joining us as a fourth site. Next slide, please. So our initial members here, this is a list of the different companies we had. This was a list that was created about a year ago. Actually, with the current financial challenges that you've seen in tech over the last 6 or 7 months, some of these partners have slid off, and so we're actually actively recruiting right now. But these are some of the big players right now in the field of extended reality and mixed reality. So next slide. So this is just a picture from the University of Maryland, College Park. So again, what we're trying to do is use our resources here in both at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, in Baltimore, and in College Park to build research projects that address some of these questions. How can we use mixed reality in healthcare in a meaningful way? How can we show that there's clinical benefit, education benefit, potentially financial benefit? And so here's just a picture. This is a 300 camera, or hollow camera capture studio at the University of Maryland in College Park. We were actually in there. It takes cool pictures, but really nice pictures in terms of 3D. I think we have a smaller version here, or a similar version here up on North Campus. Next slide, please. So our current projects, again, I think we talked about a little bit of these. So right now we have one of our innovation fellows, Taylor Cantor, who's working on augmented reality and central line placement, also augmented reality and ECMO cannulation. ECMO cannulation is the artificial lung, which the University of Michigan happens to be one of the pioneering centers in the world for that. And also the effects of AR training on cyber sickness. One of our goals is actually to take Dr. Lee's work potentially and build a collaboration with the University of Maryland on that, hopefully also in the next 6 months, and to provide some of that validation to the work that she's done. Next slide. So again, future direction, as I mentioned, our goal with this is to be industry partner directed, and so we want to engage with industry. They're the ones who are actually funding the research projects, and so how can we engage with them? We wanted to figure out the infrastructural challenges. If anyone here has worked in the hospital, I think there were a couple people, to try and get anything approved through IT in the hospital system is such a challenge. It's an unbelievable challenge. I tried to get a $10,000 pilot for a system from an established vendor. It took me 18 months to get through legal. And so that's not really feasible if we are going to be on the cutting edge for some of these things. So again, as we talked about, prove that mixed reality enhances training and patient outcomes. And again, how can we show that benefit? So I think that is my last slide. So reality is so our virtual visits came down to 30%, down from that 70%. Currently, one of the other things that has changed is residency interviews, which used to be 100% in person, are now completely virtual. And I don't know that it's ever going to go back to in person because the cost savings are so huge. But you're also seeing that eliminates some disparities for students who can't necessarily afford to go on 15 or 20 interviews. And now by doing it all virtual, that's made it easier. And so some programs also have kept their online or remote curriculum to increase their exposure to students who may not be able to travel. So, thank you.